my name is Jackie Nat, and I work at Pepperdine University, coming to you from Malibu, California. So I serve as the assistant director for our RISE program. And so that is our resilience informed skills education program here at Pepperdine. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're focusing on stepping into your purpose, building resilience through service. And so I know that maybe even some of you who selected this session might be thinking, I'm not sure I really understand how service could help build my resilience. I'm a student leader. I'm very overwhelmed and stressed at this time in the semester. I don't really, know how adding another thing onto my plate like service could help my resilience. While as surprising as it may seem, the statement service builds resilience is actually true. Now, granted, service is not focused on us, it's focused on others, but there are real practical benefits for us. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. And so, first, I've been talking about this word resilience. What do we mean? Well, here at Pepperdine Rise, we say that resilience is the ability to navigate both expected and unexpected adversities. And then in the process of navigating those adversities, we may be stretched, we may be changed, and we may even develop new skills to enhance our lives. And so, for some visual aid, the term resilience does come from the materials field. So, when we hear resilience, a lot think of a rubber band. But we do have some students who will say to us, I don't really resonate with the image of a rubber band because rubber bands break. And so we also a lot of times talk about this image of a tree. Building those resilience skills is like building our roots. Of course, there's going to be storms, winds, things that happen to us. But if we're really working on and building those deep roots, those resilience skills, there's going to be the winds of life and the storms of life and the winds of change. But we can be grounded in those skills to help us be able to bounce back. So maybe some branches might break off, but we will still be rooted. And so at Pepperdine, we focus in on 6 different dimensions of resilience. So physical, eating, sleeping, moving; social, our relationships; cognitive is all about our mindset; spiritual, so all about our spiritual well-being; life skills, so money, time, and technology management. But today we're here to focus on our service dimension of resilience. And so, like I talked about, how service can be, helping build our resilience. It's found in research, but it's also found in scripture too. So first and foremost, John 13, 1-17, about Jesus washing his disciples' feet. What a beautiful act of service. We see it in Matthew 25:40. So whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So sometimes, remembering that when we're doing an act of service for someone else, we could be presenting it up to God. Mark 12:31, love your neighbor as yourself. Because, how much do we find love? When we're serving others, aren't we loving them as well? And today's theme, 1 Peter 4:10. So use whatever gift you have received to serve others. We're going to be reflecting on that concept a lot today. And so, really the time and energy that you're spending, devoting to another person's well-being, in fact, can then help build your own well-being and have a positive effect. And so here at Pepperdine Rise, each of our dimensions have 3 different building blocks. And so the service dimension is no different. First and foremost, we talk about serving in large ways. So that's kind of when a lot of people think of service, that's what that is. So community service projects, working for a nonprofit, serving abroad, going on missions trips, all of that really important large scale work. We also talk about another building block, which is serving in small ways. So these could be either the things that maybe we forget about or don't even think of as acts of service. So that would be checking in on a friend, getting your favorite Starbucks order of a sweet mate, sending a card to a loved one, opening the door for a stranger. Those are all small acts of service. But today, we are going to be focusing in on considering your values. once again, service is not focused on us, but on others. And so, in order to be able to serve to the best of our abilities, it's really important to consider our own values, which I get could be also surprising as well. So it's not focused on me, but yet I'm now focusing on myself. But we're just saying that you should be considering your own values before going out and serving others. And I hope that you'll be able to see the benefit with me today as we kind of walk through. So, what I'm going to do is show you some different questions that you can reflect on. And don't worry, I'll ask them right now, but I'm also going to give you a QR code that you can scan and take the questions with you later, because maybe this might be something that you want to sit with and pray with and journal with, and maybe reflect on with your friends, with your neighbors, with your mentors, because these are all some really deep questions that really, really important to think about. And so I have 3 main categories, and I'll walk us through these. So the first one, what do you care deeply about? So, is there a cause that resonates with you? Is there a particular community that you care deeply for? What sort of work is meaningful for you? So this first question is really about what are those causes out there that you're really, really passionate about. And so our next set of questions is, what are your gifts and talents? So, what are gifts and talents that you've recognized within yourself? What are gifts and talents that maybe others have recognized within you? And is there a particular gift or talent that you want to focus on or nurture? I think a lot of times when we think of gifts and talents, we think of, what am I naturally gifted at? What am I really good at? When also, is there just something that you love doing? Because, maybe you want to focus on that or nurture that. And then our final round of questions is, how can you then use your gifts to serve others? And so with that, have you maybe used your gifts as service to others in the past? How can your gifts and talents help to enrich other people's lives? So you had just thought about your gifts and talents, and then it becomes thinking about, all right, is there a way that I could think about how I might use that in the future? And so, like I shared, I will be giving you all a QR code. So there it is. It's a document there to have all of those questions easily accessible so that you can kind of walk through them whenever feels comfortable for you, or maybe in a time where you just really want to reflect and reevaluate some different, some of your values. But what I also want to talk about is a really fun game that I love to play. I kind of call it Consider Your Values Tic-Tac-Toe. So let me walk you through this because I think this is so fun. I do this with a lot of my small groups, and it could be with students who know each other really well, or students who maybe, this is more of an icebreaker activity for them. So basically what you do is you ask them to draw a tic-tac-toe board. You don't need all the X's and O's yet because they're going to be filling things in, but they would draw the 4 lines. And then what I do is I walk them through those different questions. So I may ask them all the different what do you care deeply about questions, have them write their answers in the first 3 blocks. Then I'll probably ask them the what are your gifts and talents questions, have them then write their questions in the next 3 blocks. And then I finish it up with how do you use those gifts and talents to serve others, have them write their answers. Now, that's how I do it. I also think there's a lot of freedom here. I usually at least 3 answers per those questions. For me, if I was answering, is there a cause that resonates with you? My mom's a breast cancer survivor. So of course, that's a really important cause to me. I might write that here. What are my gifts and talents? I've always loved singing and performing. So I might put that answer in here. And so in order to make it a tic-tac-toe game, what you do is after everyone's done, I usually let them go free and try to play tic-tac-toe by finding a commonality with each other, with someone else in the room. And so, like I said, I think that this game could be beneficial on multiple levels because first and foremost, it's beneficial to each individual because they're getting that opportunity to get to reflect on their own values and kind of learn a little bit more about themselves. But then, and I think it can go either way, once again, if it's with a group that the students are already familiar with, I think it's a really cool way to get to know someone even better. Or also it could be a great, like I said, icebreaker activity. I've seen some students, I send them out to play tic-tac-toe, and I've heard them, oh, wow, you're interested in social work? Oh my gosh, me too. Can we talk later? Because I've been really, wanting to talk to someone. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity to get to break the ice, social resilience as well, but also be able to reflect on, considering our own values when it comes to serving others. And so I think, we can all agree that when we're talking about service, we're also talking about purpose and calling. And so I want to kind of close us out on this quote by author and theologian Frederick Buechner, which I really love and I think is super powerful. And it's, the place that God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. Now, I obviously think that we should, go out and serve wherever there is a need, but I like to think of this quote as kind of like finding our sweet spot. So it's, if you're able to find your passion in life and then find a cause or a community that needs to be served and bring those together, you're much more likely to lead a life of service as opposed to just doing one-off service opportunities. And so in conclusion, I encourage you all to reflect on this concept of considering your values. I feel like it's not something we all think about when it comes to service, but I think it's so important, even as a student leader, to be thinking about these things. And so we at Pepperdine Rise, as well as myself, we want you to confidently go out and be able to make the world a little better. Now, if you're interested in staying connected with Pepperdine Rise, we are not just Pepperdine focused, we're very outward facing. So I think our Instagram is a great place to go. This year, especially, our students want to put out a lot more educational content around resilience. Our newsletter is a great way to see, okay, what is the different research that's out there, some, peer-reviewed tips on resilience, as well as our podcast, our Rise Roundtable, where we feature different stories of resilience. Also, if you want to connect with me, Jackie, I'd love to hear from you all. The resilience email at the top of the slide is a great place to go, resilience@pepperdine.edu. But once again, thank you all so much for just spending a little bit of time with me. I hope that this was meaningful for you, especially as student leaders. I know how much you're pouring into others. And I think that a concept like this, that is connected to service, that will pour into your cup later on. I think that even reflecting on these things, whether it's by yourself in prayer, journaling, or like I said, with your friends, I hope that it could help fill your cup. And so I hope that you can, find your purpose, find your calling, and then be able to help and serve others. So thank you so much.